Welcome back, everyone. Pete and Lindsay here for our fifth podcast together, talking about health, fitness, and finances. We have an exciting topic today, one that I think will add a lot of value to people's lives because Pete and I were discussing the concept about how it sometimes requires a small bit of what we call activation energy to get a big return in investment. And there's so many parallels with this topic with both health, fitness, and finances. So, Pete, you were sharing with me about a presentation that you'll be giving to help people understand how a little bit of investing now in 401ks can grow to $1 million and $2 million. And the craziest part of that was this demonstration that you gave was for someone making like 65,000 a year. So we're not even talking about someone investing copious amounts of all of their money. It's like, what was it, like 3% of their income can yield them over $1 million when it's retirement time. So I hope I didn't steal too much of your thunder, but if you want to elaborate more on that, because if you're wondering why I'm standing in my kitchen, everyone, and why I have all this stuff behind me, and how that could possibly relate to 401ks, stay tuned.
Well, yeah. So we were talking about how sometimes just a little bit of effort can go a long way, and you were talking about what you're about to show us, and it made me think about this presentation that I'm getting ready to give, and the base case of someone in their mid 30s, maybe about a 25, 30, 35 year time horizon until retirement, and we modeled out what a just a normal salary, 60,000 bucks would look like. In this base case, we started with $1 in the 401k account. And whether there's 3% or 6%, whether you're incrementally increasing how much you save each year can, of course, make a difference. But the interesting thing about the $1 million balance that you talked about is that that was basically showing a 6% total contribution into the 401k. So everyone's 401k plan is a little bit different, whether there's an employer match, what that match is, how much that is. So looking at the total contribution into the plan is, of course, what makes a difference. And then maybe just, and this is what really resonated with me when you said just this little bit of incremental change, a 1% increase to a maximum of 10%. So when you think about the IRS limit of saving into the 401k, depending on what year you look at, being in the 20,000s, and every year it's a little different. So you definitely want to source what it is. But if you have a $60,000 salary, um, 10% is 6,000 bucks a year, and that's where we're capping it off, right? Or if we're increasing your salary for inflation, that's going to drive us up. And so there's different factors that we played with to get us closer to the $2 million mark, right? But the whole purpose to save to 401k is to make up that income between what your social security income is going to be and what your expenses are going to be. That's the whole reason that we save to the 401k, right? And
Mhm.
so understanding and showing folks the value of saving is what's really important and what the crux of the presentation I'll be giving in a couple of weeks is about.
That's great. And the really exciting part for us is when we looked at the numbers and we saw, wow, to get to that $1 million by retirement, it's really only like 1,000 a year for someone that's making 65,000. And correct me if I'm off on those numbers, but am I, let me stop there and pause. Was I off on
So
those numbers?
yeah, so the base case that we looked at together was a $60,000 salary.
Huh?
And if you're doing a 3% of that is 1,800 bucks, right?
Okay. Okay.
So if you get paid 24 times a year, it's about 75 bucks. If you get paid 20 per paycheck, if you get paid 26 times a year, it's about 70 bucks per paycheck. But when we were looking at the costs of some of the things that you're going to be walking us through, we were sort of seeing that some of that savings to do what you're doing versus buying store-bought stuff
Right.
can be applied directly to the 401ks. Am I stealing your thunder now?
No, no, it's a perfect segue. And so, yes, the whole point that we would like to get across to people today is that let's say your goal is to scrape an extra $70 a paycheck so that you can get close to that $1 million mark. And of course, there's going to be different numbers for every salary and everyone's life situation, which little side note plug, Pete is willing to actually do a demonstration for us in an upcoming podcast if there is interest. So I will be asking people on my social media if you do have interest in Pete demonstrating what it would take, the steps it would take to get yourself that comfortable retirement amount. He is willing to do that if someone suggests, hey, I'm interested for such and such a salary. And we can keep your name anonymous. We will keep your name anonymous, but that, if there's interest there, he's willing to do that in an upcoming podcast, which I thought was super generous of him to offer that. Did I get that right, Pete?
Absolutely. And if they want to include how much money maybe they have in their 401k right now, what their current age is, when they're thinking of retiring, what their current contribution amount is, I can model all of that out and sort of demonstrate what a future value could look like if they really wanted to go crazy and share with you, maybe not by posting it, but maybe DMing you what their asset allocation is, what their underlying investments, right? Some of the stuff that we've worked on.
Yeah.
We could even make some assumptions, but that's not needed. I can do that. I can make some different assumptions there as well.
That
But
is cool.
yeah,
That's a generous offer. Okay, I'll post it on my Instagram and Facebook with the specifications of, send me this info and we'll do a podcast for you, walking you through some specifics for your retirement and what you would need to be saving now to make sure that you're locked
the
in.
roadmap to a million.
That's how to say what I just said in about 50 words in like five. The roadmap to 1 million. Yeah, five. Okay. Or a million. Yeah. So let me show everyone. Are you ready? Or you think everyone's ready for it, Pete?
Now let's go for it.
All right. And I know this is going to be exciting for you because you don't even know what one of the things I'm making is. And so
That's right.
we have two recipes selected for all of you that we think you're going to enjoy, that you're probably buying somewhat similar versions at the store. And if you go from making store bought, or yeah, if you go from store buying your almond or coconut milk, your milk of choice, to making it yourself, probably not going to be for dairy cow's milk because you're probably not going to buy a cow and milk it. So this doesn't apply to cow's milk. This applies to coconut and almond milk, but specifically coconut milk. If you go from buying it at the store to making it yourself, I took actual brands and took this actual brand of shredded coconut, how much I paid for it, plug some numbers in my calculator, aka ChatGPT, and it turns out that you can save, I have the money pulled up right here, $350 just over the course of a year. Okay, let me make that clear. Over the course of a year, you can save $350 on this coconut milk. So I would like to actually start with the second recipe to show you how to make it. And this is something called tiger nut butter, but you can make almond butter, you can make peanut butter in a similar fashion. I just have tiger nut butter here because it is delicious and I wanted to show someone something new. And tiger nut butter is so good and it's so good for you that it's kind of expensive to buy at the store. So like a little jar of it costs like $25. So I make my own and I even get fancy with it and I add in a few extra things because it's just like one of my favorite things. So tiger nut butter first. Are you ready for it, Pete?
Let's go.
Okay. So you were asking me earlier, what are tiger nuts? So they are actually not nuts at all. They're actually tubers, if you want to classify them nutritionally. And they are preferred by me because they're very hypoallergenic. So if anyone is following like a paleo diet or an autoimmune paleo diet, what those diets do is they exclude things that are a little bit more irritating or have the tendency to kind of piss off your immune system. So anti-inflammatory foods that are not prone to causing people allergies or an immune response. So because tiger nuts are not nuts and seeds, which nuts and seeds are super healthy foods, But they can for someone that needs to heal their gut or for someone that needs to calm their immune system. It can be better in the initial phases to keep those things to a minimum. And then when you do reintroduce them, trying not to have excessive amounts of them. So this is very gut friendly, is what I'm getting at. So all we need
So
for this,
time out a second.
yeah, please.
So you said these are not nuts and seeds. So someone who might have a nut allergy or have a nut allergy in the family,
Yeah.
this is safe for them or no?
Yes, it is. It is. These are not nuts. So yes. And that's why it's on an AIP diet. And that's how I learned about TIGERNUT because, you have to get creative when you're on an AIP diet. You're like, oh, I miss all these foods, but there's like so many alternatives. And this is one of my favorites. And this is also great. I'll make like banana bread with this. It's delicious. It has such a great flavor to it. It is like a nutty flavor. So all I'm going to do, actually, I'm not going to pour this in first. Little tip, when you're cooking, don't put the dry goods in at the bottom, put the liquids at the bottom so it mixes better. So this is a quarter cup, actually a little less than a quarter cup. I eyeballed it and it's not quite a quarter cup. It's probably like 2 to 3 tablespoons of coconut oil and 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil. I kind of eyeball everything, but I will put the proper recipe at the bottom of the description so you can make it at home. So anyway, it's olive oil and coconut oil. I'm not going to drop anything and break it. So I'm going to pour that in this blender. And then I'm going to put in a half a cup of canned pumpkin. This is the canned pumpkin I get. Everything Amazon subscribe and save. Yes. So put in about a half a cup of canned pumpkin. And then I'm going to throw in a whole avocado. I don't always do a whole avocado, but today I'm going for a whole avocado. As you can see, you can make these recipes your own. I make them my own all the time. Some people might cringe at that, but it's how I flow.
And how do you decide whether to use a whole avocado or half an avocado?
I do this.
Aha.
I really,
The meteorologist in you.
yeah, I don't really have much of a system in place. I just, for not wasting, say, oh, here, I'll tell you how I decide. If I have a whole avocado in the fridge, I'll use it. Sometimes when I eat avocado, I only have a half of one open. Then I'll just use a half. So I guess that's my method. And then you might, if you're making this, you might try it with a whole avocado and be like, ooh, this is too much avocado. And then the next time do it with a half and be like, now that is perfect. And then this is a cup and a half of TIGERNUT flour. So I just pour that in. And then this is the salt I use. David's kosher salt. It has been vetted for plastics and heavy metals. Don't get me started on that, but yes, sea salts.
And yet, it looks like it's in a plastic container.
This is true. Yeah. But here's the thing. So if it's would it probably be a little bit more optimal to do glass? Yes. But where I draw the line on plastic containers is putting hot food in plastic containers. So if I can, if there's anything hot in plastic, that's what I don't want. The leaching of the plastic into the salt is going to be very minimal to my knowledge. If someone has information saying otherwise, please share it with me. Because to my understanding, it's really the temperature of the food and the acidity of the food. So if you have canned soup, the lining of soup cans has a lot of phthalates and all these different chemicals, sometimes BPS, sometimes BPA, BPF, whatever. And those are the substances that leach into the can. So this, very low risk of leaching. I hope that makes sense. So I just kind of like that. And I think that's it. Sometimes if I feel like it, I throw in cinnamon. We'll throw in a little bit of cinnamon. I use Ceylon cinnamon. And because it turns out that other forms of cinnamon, if you're having large amounts of them, there's a compound in there that can be a little bit abrasive to your liver. Who would have thunk? So that's only if you're having large amounts, probably not that big of a deal if you're not. And then all I'm gonna do is blend this up. And for the sake of not piercing your ears, I'm not gonna blend it now, but what I'll do is I'll take a picture of the final product and I'll share it somewhere. I'll share it on my website. That's what I'll do, is I will show you the final product of this and I'll share it on my website, but I would honestly just eat it as it, I would just eat it like this.
And so how much product does that make?
So this is gonna make probably, I could probably fill like 3/4 of this coconut oil jar with this. Maybe even the
Okay.
whole, maybe close to the whole thing. So this will last me a solid 3 weeks. And then I'll make another batch.
And
So,
so for those of us who have never heard of Tiger Nut, how do
uh,
you use this butter? Is this a spread for a sandwich? Does it go on bananas and apples? Like what do you do with this?
all that. I put it with my fruit. A lot of times I'll make bowls and do like berries, tiger nut butter, cacao nibs, carob nibs. That's an AIP friendly alternative to chocolate. And carob doesn't have lead and cadmium like chocolate does. Chocolate is like a sponge for soaking up lead and cadmium from the soil. So there are so many third party reports that show like most chocolates have high levels of lead and cadmium, many above the acceptable limits of what the government deems safe. And then, yeah, so carob nibs, I use those a lot. I get them off Amazon. What else? I get this bread called pacha bread. It's organic and gluten free. It's made of buckwheat, which wheat actually does not contain gluten. It's a funny name for something that doesn't contain gluten, but I buy pacha bread. You can either get it from Whole Foods or I buy it off their website a lot, and then I'll spread it on that. Sometimes I'll just, take a spoonful. That's what I do with it. So,
There's at least one other person listening to this podcast that has done that with Nutella. So
oh,
it's probably better to do it with your with this than with Nutella.
yes, I would agree with that. And the last recipe I have for everyone is very simple. All you do, so to make the coconut milk, all you do is what I did when Pete and I were getting ready for this podcast is I microwaved about 3 cups of water and then I poured it in this big bowl and I poured a cup of these coconut flakes in this bowl and it's just been sitting here. So when we end this podcast, what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend my tiger nut butter and then I'm going to blend the coconut flakes and water. And I will add some salt and some vanilla to this. So I'll add a little salt. You don't have to, but yeah, I like to do that. So a little salt, little vanilla, and then I'll blend this and then I'll just take a strainer. Where is my strainer? I don't know exactly where it is right now, but I'll just take my strainer, and then pour it from the blender through a strainer into, I'll probably use a jar like this. And then I have coconut milk and it'll make about 3 cups of coconut milk. And again, this will save $350 over the course of a year. This will save about $250 to $300 over the course of the year, depending on how often you're eating it. And if you do this with some of your products, then it can really add up. Again, I know like devil's advocate, people might say, yes, but time is money. And I do agree with that, but also the health of this is going to be way better than any coconut milk that you're getting with like fillers and gums, because obviously this doesn't have them. Yes, you can find some without, but a lot of times those are in cans and which might leach some of those linings of the cans, or you don't know exactly what the material is that they're using. And a lot of them, are giving you some kind of exposure. How significant it is, no one knows for sure, but this is definitely a healthy way to go. So what do you think, Pete? Am I crazy? Do you think people will do this?
I think people will do it at least once just to try it,
Yeah.
especially if they can easily get the ingredients. So maybe in addition to the picture that you're going to post, maybe letting us all know where we can get these ingredients. Because those of us that are into health and wellness, we do like to experiment in the kitchen and try things on our own. There definitely is the convenience of just going to Whole Foods or ordering good stuff. But if you are trying to reprioritize where your money is going, this might be a really good way of incorporating a healthy food component while freeing up some cash for another priority. That was the financial advisor in me coming out.
That's great. And I actually told myself, okay, I'll try this coconut milk thing once. But I was like, ooh, this tastes better than the one I get at the store and it's cheaper and it's really not that hard to make. Like if you're cooking your dinner, you can microwave a couple cups of water and then throw in a cup of coconut oil, let it sit, blend it and strain it real quick. I mean, it's a little bit of time, but it's not that involved. So after I realized, I was like, this is actually pretty easy and it tastes better. And it saves money. I'm doing it. So every once in a while, I'll still buy the store bought stuff just because I'm like, shoot, didn't make my coconut milk. But yeah.
at some point in all of our health and fitness journeys, we really start to focus on ingredients and health foods. And probably most people who are going to be listening to this podcast for the health and fitness part of it, we know the processed foods in the supermarket. We know the dangers of chips and whatnot. I've been reading a book. I'm about to finish it called Salt, Sugar, and Fat.
Oh yeah.
And
I think
if
I had to
no
read that
one,
for school.
say that again.
I'm pretty sure that was one of the books I had to read for school.
hmm It is, it's eye-opening. It is disheartening. It is scary. And if it has ever made you focus on ingredients and what you put on your body in your body and why, um, if anyone listening to this hasn't read it, it's a really quick read
Yeah.
and it's fascinating.
Yeah, yeah, it was, because I didn't have to like read books other than textbooks except for this one book. And I think there was one other one because it was a pretty quick and easy read, but it
hmm
was good. I enjoyed it. I think there's a powerful message because our brains do get addicted to those foods. But at the same time, I think that people, once they start learning how to cook healthy food in a way that tastes good, the journey is not that bad. It does
It's not hard.
takes a little bit. So I guess to bring it all home, it takes a little bit of time and effort to, I guess, plan to make this stuff, right? But it's not that hard to make. A little bit of time, a little bit of effort, go the extra mile to food prep, and then it pays you back exponentially because you feel so much better. Every
That's right.
one of my clients that's gone from eating the way that they were eating, even when they thought they were eating healthy, to eating whole foods in ways, similar to what I'm showing here. But obviously, vegetables, you got to include more of vegetables. These don't contain vegetables. Um, but they always comment, wow, I feel so much better. I'm more productive. And you end up getting more time in your day because when you feel good, you're more productive and
100%.
yeah, you can get more done in the time that you have. So,
100%. And the first few times that we do this, anything new, the first few times we do anything new, it's a little more effort, takes a little more time. But if we just look at the ease with which you pull together these two things, your coconut milk ready to go,
yeah.
and the butter is ready to be blended. And that took minutes. And you're probably accustomed to the ingredients that need to get ordered. Of course, you're on subscribe and save, so Amazon just delivers your stuff
I
every
think
week.
every
But
single one of these ingredients came from Amazon. I'm looking
okay,
now, every single one of them. Yeah. Uh-huh.
so it's an easy enough thing to try. See if it works for you. See if you like it.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, Pete, I'm excited that you have made such a wonderful offer to everyone. So I'll get the specifics from you as far as what information you would want.
Sure.
And then we'll get that information and we can run with that for our next podcast.
Sounds like a plan.
Awesome. Thank you for joining, everyone. We'll see you for podcast number 6.
Bye.